purple ink and imperial seals. You are a 6th century Byzantine scribe, kneeling on a worn cushion in the dim light of the Imperial Scriptorium. The air smells of vinegar and crushed sea snails are your tools for the day. Before you lies a blank parchment, and beside it, a small clay pot filled with the most precious substance in the empire, Tyrian purple ink. This isn't just any ink. It's made from the secretions of the Murax snail, a creature so valuable that its harvest is controlled by the emperor himself. Your task? To transcribe an urgent message from Emperor Justinian to his generals on the Persian front. The process begins with a ritual. You dip your quill a goose feather trimmed just so into the ink. Careful not to waste a drop. Each stroke must be perfect. Mistakes are not tolerated in the imperial court. The ink glistens weighty, a deep, rich purple that seems to glow even in the flickering lamplight. This color is more than just pigment. It's a symbol of power. Only the emperor and his closest advisors are permitted to use it. Even the parchment is special, imported from Egypt. Its surface smoothed with pumice stone until it's as soft as silk. As you write, you can't help but think of the journey this message will take. It will be sealed with beeswax and stamped with the emperor's signet ring, a gemstone carved with his likeness. It will be handed to a courier, a man trained to run for days without rest, his path guarded by soldiers. But first, the ink must dry. You blow gently on the parchment, watching as the purple darkens from a vibrant hue to something more subdued. The smell of the ink is oddly comforting, salty and earthy, like the sea outside. The sounds of Constant and Opal drift in, the distant call of merchants in the marketplace, the clatter of hooves on cobblestones, the occasional shout of a city guard. But here, in the scriptorium, there's only the scratch of your quill and the steady rhythm of your breath. This is your world, a world of ink and parchment, of secrets and symbols, and for now, at least, you are its master. The message is nearly complete. You pause to read it over, ensuring every word is precise. The emperor's words are direct, his tone commanding. There's no room for ambiguity in matters of war. Satisfied, you roll the parchment tightly and reach for the beeswax. The final step is the sela, press of the emperor's ring into the warm wax, leaving an impression that marks this as an official decree. As you hand the scroll to the waiting courier, you wonder, will this message change the course of history? Or will it be lost to time, like so many others? For now, it doesn't matter. Your duty is done. The snails have spoken. The snail harvest ritual. You are knee-deep in the Aegean Sea at dawn, the cold water lapping at your tunic as you wade through the shallows. The sky is a pale lavender, streaked with the first hints of gold. This is the best time to harvest Murax snails. The creatures are sluggish in the cool morning air, their spiny shells easier to spot against the sandy seabed. Your basket, woven from reeds, bobs beside you, already half full with the precious mollusks. Each one is a tiny treasure, their secretions destined to become the empire's most coveted dye, Tyrian purple. The work is slow and methodical. You bend at the waist, your fingers probing the sand for the telltale ridges of a Murax shell. When you find one, you pry it loose carefully, avoiding the sharp spines that can draw blood if handled carelessly. The snails are surprisingly heavy for their size, their bodies tucked tightly inside their spiraled homes. You drop them into the basket, where they clink softly against one another. The sound is almost musical, a quiet percussion to accompany the rhythmic sigh of the waves. Around you, other harvesters move in silence, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. This is a communal effort, but it's also a competitive one. The more snails you collect, the greater your share of the day's earnings. Yet there's an unspoken respect among the gatherers. No one rushes or pushes. The sea provides, but only to those who are patient. As the sun climbs higher, the water warms, and the snails become more active. Some begin to emerge from their shells, their fleshy feet probing the air as if sensing danger. You work faster now, your fingers darting like seabirds snatching fish from the surface. The basket grows heavier, its weight tugging at your arm. Soon, it will be time to return to shore, where the snails will be handed over to the dyers. But first, there's one last ritual. You pause, reaching into the basket to select the largest snail. This one is special. Its shell is a deep, iridescent purple, a sign of its potency. You hold it up to the light, admiring the way the colors shift in the sun. Then, with a quick twist of your wrist, you crack the shell against a rock. The snail's body oozes out, a thick, yellowish fluid pooling in your palm. This is the precious secretion, the source of the dye that will adorn the robes of emperors and empresses. You smear the fluid onto a scrap of linen, watching as it oxidizes in the air, slowly transforming from yellow to green to, finally, a rich, vibrant purple. The process is magical, an alchemy of nature and human ingenuity. Satisfied, you tuck the linen into your belt, a small offering to the gods of the sea. Thank you for the day's bounty. With the basket now full, you turn toward the shore, your feet sinking into the soft sand with each step. Behind you, the sea stretches endlessly, its surface glittering like a field of crushed sapphires. The snails will be harvested again tomorrow, and the day after that, for as long as the Empire demands its purple. But for now, your work is done. Dye Workshop disasters. The dye workshop hums with activity as you step inside. The air thick with the pungent aroma of fermenting Murax glands and vinegar. Rows of large clay vats line the walls, each filled with a bubbling concoction that will soon transform into the Empire's most prized pigment. Your task today is simple. Oversee the final stages of a batch destined for the Emperor's new ceremonial robes. But as any seasoned dyer knows, simplicity is often a prelude to chaos. You inspect the first vat, stirring the murky liquid with a long wooden paddle. The color is promising a deep, reddish purple, but something feels off. The viscosity is wrong, too thin, like watered down wine. You frown, calling over one of the apprentices. Did you measure the snail extract properly? The boy hesitates, his eyes darting to a nearby ledger. Before he can answer, a shout erupts from across the room. One of the vats has boiled over, its contents spilling onto the packed earth floor in a frothy, greenish wave. Disaster. The workshop erupts into controlled panic as workers scramble to contain the mess. You grab a bucket of sand, the quickest way to absorb the spill, and dash forward, your sandals slipping on the slick surface. As you pour the sand, you notice something peculiar. The spilled dye isn't turning purple. It's staying stubbornly green. A murmur spreads through the room. Green is the color of misfortune, of spoiled batches and wasted snails. And wasted snails mean wasted gold. You kneel, dipping a finger into the spill. The texture is gritty, the smell sharper than usual. Who prepared this vat? You demand. A sheepish apprentice steps forward, clutching a sack of what looks like crushed seashells. Two thought adding extra calcium would make the color brighter. He stammers. You sigh. Brightness isn't the issue. Purity is. The Murax secretion must be isolated, uncontaminated, or the dye will never set. Now, an entire vat and a week's worth of snail harvest is ruined. But there's no time for reprimands. The Emperor's deadline looms, and the remaining vats must be salvaged. You rally the workers, dividing them into teams to monitor the surviving batches. One group tends to the fires beneath the vats, ensuring the temperature stays steady. Another filters the dye through linen cloths, removing impurities. You take charge of the largest vat, adding a careful dose of vinegar to stabilize the pH. The liquid swirls, its color shifting like a stormy sunset. Hours later, as the sun dips below the horizon, the workshop settles into an exhausted calm. The salvage dye is poured into ceramic jars, their surfaces glazed to preserve the pigment. The green spill culprit is scrubbing floors as punishment, his ears still red from your lecture. You lean against a wall, wiping sweat from your brow. Tomorrow, the process will begin. More snails, more vats, more opportunities for disaster. But for now, the workshop is quiet, the air tinged with the faint, metallic scent of success. And somewhere in the palace, an emperor's robes are one step closer to being dyed the color of power. Papyrus versus parchment wars. The imperial courier stands before you, his face etched with exhaustion. As he delivers the news, the latest shipment of Egyptian papyrus has been delayed again. This time, the culprit isn't bandits or storms, but a pod of hippos blocking the Nile's trade routes. You pinch the bridge of your nose, suppressing a groan. Without papyrus, the imperial bureaucracy grinds to a halt. But in the storeroom, a stack of parchments move. Durable and infuriatingly expensive gleams under the flickering lamplight. The battle between papyrus and parchment is about to begin. You call a meeting of the scriptorium scribes, their faces a mix of resignation and quiet rebellion. Papyrus is the traditional choice, lightweight, easy to roll, and relatively cheap. But it's also fragile, prone to cracking in dry weather or dissolving in damp. Parchment, made from stretched and scraped animal hide, is tougher pricked for long journeys or important decrees. Yet its cost is prohibitive, and its surface requires meticulous preparation. The scribes argue in hushed tones, their loyalty divided. Some cling to tradition, others see the hippo-induced crisis as a chance to modernize. You decide on a compromise. Routine correspondence will wait for the papyrus shipment. Urgent messages, like the emperor's latest edict on tax reforms, will be transcribed onto parchment. The scribes set to work, their quills scratching against the unfamiliar surface. Parchment doesn't absorb ink the same way papyrus does. The letters bleed slightly, giving the text a softer, almost blurred appearance. One scribe mutters a curse as his nib catches on a patch of uneven texture. Another sighs, rubbing a smudge with a damp cloth only to realize too late that parchment reacts poorly to water. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, a heated debate erupts between the imperial treasurer and the master of supplies. The treasurer insists parchment is a wasteful extravagance. The master counters that reliability is priceless, especially when dealing with missives to the Persian frontier. Their voices rise, drawing a crowd of clerks and guards. You intervene just as the treasurer brandishes a scroll of papyrus like a weapon, its edges frayed from rough handling. You say, plucking it from his grip, "Is why we need options." Days pass. The hippos, blissfully unaware of the chaos they've caused, finally clear the river. The papyrus arrives, its sweet, grassy scent filling the storeroom. Relief washes over the scriptorium until you unroll the first sheet and find it speckled with mold. The journey took too long. The damp Nile air has taken its toll. The scribes exchange glances. Without a word, they return to their parchment, their quills moving with renewed determination. By weeks, and the emperor's edicts are en route to the provinces, their words preserved on sturdy parchment. The papyrus, carefully dried and trimmed, is relegated to less critical tasks. As you seal the last scroll, you can't help but smile. The hippos may have won this round, but in the endless war between papyrus and parchment, adaptability is the true victor. And somewhere down the Nile, A group of scribes is probably cursing a new obstacle at perhaps a particularly stubborn crocodile. The Imperial Post Relay. You mount your horse at the first light of dawn. The Emperor's sealed scrolls strapped securely in a leather case against your side. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of thyme from the nearby hills. As one of the Imperial Post Riders, your duty is simple yet perilous. Carry these messages across Anatolia without delay or damage. The roads are treacherous. Bandits lurk in the shadows, and even the goats seem to conspire against you. Their curious nibbles threatening to reduce sacred decrees to scraps. Your route is a well-worn path, dotted with relay stations where fresh horses and brief rests await. Each station is a small fortress of order in the wilderness, manned by soldiers and stable hands who know better than to ask questions. At the first stop, you dismount with practiced ease, handing the reins to a waiting groom. The station master, a grizzled veteran missing 2 fingers, eyes the scroll case but says nothing. You're given a bowl of lukewarm lentil soup and 10 minutes to eat it. Time is a currency more valuable than the gold thread in the Emperor's robes. Back on the road, you push your horse to a steady gallop. The landscape blurs olive groves, rocky outcrops, the occasional shepherd who barely glances up as you pass. The rhythm of hoofbeats becomes a meditation. But peace is fragile. Near a narrow mountain pass, movement catches your eye. Figures crouched among the boulders. Bandits. You tighten your grip on the reins, weighing your options. Fighting is futile. Your only weapon is a small dagger meant for cutting fruit. Instead, you dig in your heels and urge your horse faster. The scroll case bouncing against your hip. A stone whizzes past your ear. But soon the danger fades behind you. The bandits, it seems, prefer easier prey. By midday, you reach the second relay station, where a fresh horse-spirited bay with a white blasé is ready. The station's commander, a man with a voice like grinding millstones, warns of a storm brewing to the east. You accept a water skin and a wedge of cheese, then set off again. This time under a sky growing heavy with clouds. The first drops fall as you enter a forest of ancient cedars, their trunks wide enough to hide a dozen ambush. The road narrows to a muddy track. Your horse's hooves sink into the mire, slowing your progress. Thunder rumbles, and the rain turns torrential. The scroll case, though oiled leather, won't withstand a prolonged soaking. You shrug off your cloak and wrap it around the case, resigning yourself to a drenched tunic. Dusk finds you at the final relay station, a modest outpost on the edge of a bustling town. Your arrival sparks a flurry of activity. A scribe inspects the scrolls for damage, his relief palpable when he finds them dry and intact. You're given a dry tunic, a bowl of stew, and permission to sleep for 4 hours. At midnight, you'll ride again, this time carrying replies back to the capital. As you lie on a straw pallet, listening to the rain patter on the roof, you wonder about the messages you've delivered. Are they declarations of war? Trade agreements? Love letters from the Emperor to his wife? It doesn't matter. Your duty is to the road, the horse, and the scroll. The rest is someone else's story. The storm passes, leaving the air sharp and clean. When you mount your new horsey, a gray mare with the endurance of a mountain, the scroll case feels lighter, though you know it's just your weariness. The road back is the same, yet different. The bandits, if they're still there, hide. The goats, now asleep, pose no threat. And you, though saddle-sore and bleary-eyed, are already thinking of the next ride. Because in the Empire, the post never stops, and neither do you. Monastery decoding mishaps. The monastery scriptorium is silent, save for the scratch of quills and the occasional sigh of a sleepy monk. You've been entrusted with decoding an imperial message written in the intricate, Snail ink script of the Byzantine court, a task usually reserved for the abbot himself, but he's away tending to a sick villager, leaving you, a junior scribe with more enthusiasm than experience, to unravel the purple-inked words. The parchment smells faintly of the sea, its edges slightly curled from humidity. As you squint at the flowing script, your stomach growls. It's well past mealtime, and your concentration is slipping. You begin transcribing, your quill trembling as you replicate each elaborate letter. The ink is unusually thick, pooling where your strokes hesitate. Halfway through, you pause. The phrase "reinforce the southern garrison" seems straightforward, but the next line, "prepare the snail broth," makes no sense. You rub your eyes. Did the emperor's scribe confuse military logistics with culinary instructions? Or is this some coded metaphor lost on you? A nearby monk, Brother Lucian, peers over your shoulder. He says, nodding sagely, "The imperial forces must be famished after their march." Doubt gnaws at you. You reread the passage, this time noticing a smudge where the ink has bled. Could snail broth actually be sail north? The difference is a single, malformed letter. You groan. Misinterpreting this could mean sending troops to a kitchen instead of a battlefield. The abbot's stern face flashes in your mind, but hunger clouds judgment. You convince yourself the emperor must indeed be concerned about his soldiers' meals, why else mention broth? And adjust your translation accordingly. The next morning, as the monastery bells toll, a commotion erupts in the courtyard. A red-faced courier brandishes your decoded message at the gatekeeper. Who translated this? Who translated this? He demands. Your blood turns to ice. Stepping forward, you brace for reprimand until the courier bursts into laughter. The garrison commander nearly died of confusion. He spent hours interrogating his cooks about non-existent snail rations. Relief floods you, followed by embarrassment. The courier claps your shoulder. The emperor's reply says to send the original scribe next time, and maybe a dictionary. Later, in the scriptorium, you examine the message anew. Under proper light, the broth error is obvious. Brother Lucian, now sheepish, offers you an apple. Perhaps? He muses. The snails were trying to tell us something. You both laugh, but the lesson sticks. History is written by the careful, the fed, and the wide awake. As for the emperor's actual orders, they're en route to the southern garrison this time, with a footnote clarifying that no seafood is required. The Frankish envoys stand stiffly in the gilded reception hall, their fur-lined cloaks at odds with the Mediterranean heat. A mid-level Byzantine diplomat clutched the scroll meant to welcome Thema, standard letter of greeting, painstakingly penned in Tyrian purple ink. But as you unroll it before the assembly, a collective gasp ripples through the room. The ink, usually a regal violet, has dried into a murky green. The envoys exchange glances. In Frankish culture, green symbolizes deceit. This isn't a welcome. It's an accidental insult. Panicked, you glance at the court chemist, who mouths one word, humidity. The recent rains must have altered the snail dye's pH. Too late now. The lead envoy, a bearish man with a braided beard, clears his throat. He asks in heavily accented Greek how Byzantium honors its allies. The emperor's chamberlain shoots you a look that promises future unemployment. Think fast. You roll the scroll shut with a flourish. A demonstration, you declare, to show how swiftly appearances can deceive just as our enemy's intentions might. The room holds its breath. The Frankish envoy's beard twitches. Then, unexpectedly, he barks a laugh. He concedes. The tension evaporates. Later, over spiced wine, he admits the greens of his homeland are far uglier. The chemist, now your reluctant ally, whispers that adding iron filings to the dye vats will stabilize the color. Crisis averted, but as you watch the envoys depart, you make a mental note. From now on, test the ink before diplomacy, and maybe keep some emergency gold leaf on hand. Siege communication tricks. The city walls loom before you, their stones scorched by fire and stained with the residue of previous assaults. Inside, the besieged garrison awaits reinforcements, but no messenger has slipped past the enemy lines in weeks. As the Emperor's siege near, your task is not to break the walls, but to break the silence. The solution? Hollowed-out Murax snails, their spiral shells repurposed as tiny message capsules. It's absurd, it's ingenious, and it might just work. You gather your team in a tent lit by a single oil lamp. On the table lies the prototype, a snail shell, its interior carefully cleaned and filled with a tightly rolled scrap of parchment. The message is simple: hold for 3 more days. Relief comes. The challenge is delivery. Archers could shoot the shells over the walls, but accuracy is questionable. A catapult would shatter them. Then an apprentice, her fingers still stained from extracting the snails, suggests slingshots, precise and quiet. At midnight, you creep to the forward trenches. The enemy's campfires glow in the distance, but the sentries are drowsy. Your best slinger takes position, a hollow snail nestled in his leather pouch. He whirls it once, twice, then releases. The shell arcs silently through the moonlight and vanishes over the parapet. You repeat the process a dozen times, varying the angles. Some shells will be lost, some found by the wrong people, but if even one reaches the garrison commander, it's worth the effort. Dawn brings chaos. The enemy, having discovered a few shells, is in uproar. Are they poisoned? Cursed? Their confusion buys time. Then, at noon, a signal flag appears on the wall, a prearranged pattern meaning message received. Relief floods you. The garrison will hold, and when the reinforcements arrive 3 days later, as promised, the enemy breaks before their charge. Afterward, the garrison commander returns one of your shells, now empty. Inside, you find a new message, inked in what looks like berry juice. Next time, send wine. The Emperor, delighted, orders 1,000 more shells prepared. As you supervise the cleaning process, you chuckle. History will remember the trebuchets and the battering rams, but you'll remember the snails, the forgotten snail libraries. Beneath the bustling streets of Constantinople, in a network of abandoned aqueducts, lies one of the Empire's best-kept secrets, the snail libraries. You're part of a small team of archivists tasked with cataloging these peculiar repositories, where retired message-carrying snails are stored not as food, but as living records. Each shell is inscribed with tiny, coded notches, a system devised by a forgotten bureaucrat centuries ago. Your lantern flickers as you kneel beside a moss-covered niche, where dozens of shells rest in orderly rows. They're cold to the touch, their spirals worn smooth by time. The work is tedious but oddly mesmerizing. Using a bronze stylus, you trace the notches on a shell, translating them into numbers and letters on your wax tablet. This one, you realize, carried a message about a grain shipment during a long-ago drought. The next details a marriage alliance between noble families. The Snails, it seems, were more than couriers. They were unwitting historians. But why store them here? The lead archivist, a woman with ink-stained fingers, explains their shells absorb the dye. Under the right light, the original messages reappear like ghosts. As you work, a discovery sends a shiver down your spine. A shell near the back bears the imperial seal. Its notches are unusually deep, as if carved in haste. The translation reveals a single word: treason. No date, no notes, just a warning lost to time. You glance at your colleagues, but they're absorbed in their own shells. Should you report this? Or is it better left buried? Like the snails themselves? The decision is made for you when a sudden drip of water extinguishes your lantern. In the darkness, the shells seem to whisper. You'll never know if the treason was thwarted or if it shaped the Empire's fate. But as you emerge into the sunlight, blinking like one of your subterranean charges, you realize the truth. History isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes, it's carried on the backs of snails. Sunset of the Snail scribes. The day silk paper arrives from the east, the Imperial Scriptorium falls silent. You run your fingers over the smooth, foreign material, lighter than parchment, more durable than papyrus, and utterly devoid of the sea salt scent that has permeated your career. Around you, the other scribes exchange uneasy glances. This is the future, and it smells of mulberry trees, not Murax snails. The Emperor's decree is clear. Henceforth, all official documents will use silk paper. The snails, after centuries of service, are to be repurposed. As kitchen staff haul away baskets of confused mollusks, you overhear one say, "Soup tonight." You linger at your desk, staring at the last Tyrian purple ink pot. Its surface has dried into a cracked, dull film. No one will replenish it. The dye workshops have already shifted focus, their vats now boiling with indigo and saffron. Even the Murax harvesters, those dawn-waiting stalwarts, have been reassigned to fishing boats. Progress, as always, is ruthless. Yet, as you dip a new silk paper sheet into water to test its resilience, you recall the quirks of your old medium, the way parchment sometimes curled at the edges like a sleeping cat, or how papyrus crackled like fire when unrolled too quickly. That evening, you sneak a single snail from the kitchen bound for the pot. Its shell is chipped, its body sluggish from captivity. In your quarters, you place it on a scrap of parchment and watch as it leaves a faint, glistening trail-on final, unintended message. You smile. The Empire may have moved on, but you'll always read the language of snails. The next morning, as you transcribe the first silk paper edict, your quill hesitates. The ink spreads differently. The letters sharper but somehow less alive. Outside, the sea breeze carries the distant cries of gulls. Somewhere beyond the harbor, the Murax beds lie untouched, waiting for history to need them again.